Oh, it's got a concrete pedestal and then the light pole on top of it. We're fighting on that. Sorry. That building's a tin shed.
Okay. All right.
Next time you're
Call the Vermilion County Council meeting to order. Will please stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sorry, we're running a few minutes behind this evening. Roll call, Mr. Costello.
Here.
Mr. Somerville.
Here.
Ms. Brown. Here. Mrs. James, I'm present. Mr. Weir.
Here.
Mr. Bose.
Here.
And Mr. Brown.
Here.
Thank you. All right, the first item we have is our approval of minutes. We have our January 9th meeting minutes. Is there any corrections, additions, or comments regarding the minutes? No changes are needed. I entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
All right. I have a motion from Mr. Brown and a second from Mr. Weir to approve the January 9th, 2023 Vermilion County Council meeting minutes. All those in favor, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed state no. All right. Minutes are approved. All right. The next item on our agenda this evening is Treasurer's Report. She's included the main report and the interest report as well. Does anyone have questions regarding it? Okay. We don't have any transfers of funds this evening, so we'll move on to the additional appropriations. Our first additional appropriation this evening is for $20,000 to professional services. The commissioners are asking to fund the architectural engineering preliminary design work for the ambulance bays with the EMS facilities. Mr. Yoakum's here this evening.
What we're talking tonight about as far as the possibility in the future of having a new ambulance facility for the county. There's been a lot of work done on this and involvement. And first of all, I want to have Mark O'Hara talk about who all has been involved, and he can give you an update on that first.
Mark O'Hara, Vermilion County EMA. About early last summer, we were asked to put a committee together to look at the possibility of building ambulance buildings to try and get the cost of the ambulance annual contract down. On the committee, we've got two council members, got Rick and Neil, Kevin Wickens, who's a township trustee, one fire chief, Brent Lewis, and myself. We've had a total of about 10 meetings. The idea of this project is to build, or to have on the shelf at least to start with, a drawing and a fairly good price of what it's going to cost to build one of these buildings. In the end, my perfect view, I don't want to talk for everybody else, they can talk for themselves, would be to have 3 of these buildings throughout the county. We've looked at putting them along the 63 corridor to try and improve response times. If you look at those ambulance response times, the Clinton area, the Cayuga area, you're looking at 3 minutes or so. Middle of the county, north end of the county, you're looking at 18 to 20 minutes. That's, that could be your life if you're having a heart attack and nobody gets to you before then. So we've been talking about it for quite a few years. When we went to a paramedic service, this was brought up, but nobody wanted to jump in that fast and build buildings, go to paramedic service, and do all the things we did. So we have put together a plan. I've come to you guys before and talked about this. Since then, we've brought in an engineer. He hasn't really done anything except we've talked a little bit about it. He did a preliminary drawing. We're looking at somewhere between probably $700,000 and $1 million to build one facility, one building, okay? We've talked to some property owners. The first one we're looking at would be a $1.99 year lease type thing, so it's not the land itself, it's no cost to the county. It seems to be moving forward with that. Beyond that, I would say that at the last meeting we had, and I've got no construction background, no engineering background or any of that stuff, we're looking at a project to design this facility so that it's ready to go and be built if we get funding. That's going to cost, I think $79,000 would be the outset from start to finish on the project. I think it's 20 just to start doing drawings. And as part of that, we're looking at, it's around July timeframe, the Ready Grant. Sometime this summer, Ready Grant's coming out. Ready Grant has a percentage match, which might be 20%, 15, 10, who knows. And so what we're trying to do is have this ready to go so that when the Ready Grant comes out and they're ready to hand out money, we're ready to do this project. And then all we have to do is come back and appropriate our percentage that we need to match, okay? I believe right off we're looking at one building, maybe two in the start of the project, one building being on the north end of the county, around between 700 and 800 north, right on 63. And that's the landowner who's willing to deal with us pretty good. Another one would be middle of the county, somewhere around 36, and then down around 163 area would be the other one. Those would be in the future, unless we can, depending on the size of the Ready Grant, what kind of money they're giving out and what the percentage of match is. But until we have this project ready to go, so we can say, you know, if they're giving out whatever, we can apply for $800,000 from them. You know, right now we're just talking about numbers with no background.
I want to say one thing, that one of the things about this, many times I believe people, especially come for funding and come to the council and want the money. And I believe every time that, especially the county highway department with our community crossing grant, we've done the work, we've saved the county a lot of money, a 75% return and only a 25% investment. And I think that's something always ought to be considered, is what is the local people doing to try to make this a success. We've got a great board here that's been put together, a very different, especially in emergency management, that can give good input, and I think it's a tremendous board. And the whole thing about this, we're looking at doing something that is all based or hinged on funding for grant money. And like I said, if I have, when I was in Indianapolis here 2 weeks ago at the State House, I talked to someone, and it sounds very good for us to get a Ready Grant. Last year it didn't happen. All the money went a different place. And I've been working, I've got some inroads I'm working with. I've got another meeting this next week about it in Terre Haute to talk more about getting this set ready. The problem with our county is grants often come out, but we're never ready for them. They come out and then everybody's trying to find, you know, get the stuff together. This process here has been planned, it's been put together, it's got the right people involved, and everything that we're going to do here is hinged on grant money. The thing I'd say is I would like to see, and I'm not asking for a decision now, but we do have money, and I think especially with the ARP money today, I would like to see something out of that ARP money that we can see and touch and feel that will have a long-lasting effect. And doing this type of building, I think, would be something that would be, you know, that would last and we can actually see it. And so what I would like to say is maybe the next meeting bring it up that to allot, or however you want to do it, not appropriate, but if the money can be spoke for, because if I go after this grant, or we go after this grant, we need to know that percentage is there for us to do that. You know what I'm saying? Today we're just asking for the $20,000 to do the pre-engineering work of Mr. Conley here to make it ready to be bid out. And if we know we can do that, and then next meeting maybe we can come up with a figure to say that you could not appropriate, but have money set aside in case the grant. I keep saying in case, because the grant don't come through, there's no use doing it. But anyway, it's something good. I think we can get the money. If we can get the money, I think it'd be a great thing to do. As Mark had mentioned, right now, the one site we have, they said they give us a 100-year lease for $1, and that's pretty good. I've talked to our county attorney, John Spur, and he said that there is no problem with building a structure on leased property. So it's kind of where we're at. And Mr. Conley, you got anything you want to say? He's our engineer.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here. We've had good opportunity to meet with the committee and go over some really well thought out preliminary ideas with the committee. And I think that it's a very good thing for you to plan. The planning phase that we're going to develop for you includes not only just the design of the building, but all of the utilities, all of the mechanical systems and preliminary specifications that we can really tie the price down very well. We're very familiar with bidding public projects. I've been doing this for 40 years and hope that you can take the step to move forward, and be very happy to show you the plans as they develop.
Thank you.
The other thing is too is with that $20,000 cost, we will have a set of plans that we can duplicate. So it's not something just a one time. We can do it again. And I think especially with doing a building like that, and then we might find small things when we build this building that we can critique. But that $20,000 cost that you're talking about doing now could be used multiple times.
Right.
It's not just a one time. So.
Is there an additional 79,000 labor?
Altogether is 79,000, including the 20.
That's
When we get ready to build?
Yeah, when we build, the roughly $80,000 will take you all the way
Right,
through.
and they go all the way through and include some oversight during
Yeah.
construction.
But again, I want to say this. Too many times we're reacting instead of proactive. And I know the commissioners, we develop things with our bridges, and we're looking ahead. We're planning, and we're getting funding for them out ahead. And too many times we've waited for something to happen and have to pay 100%. So this is something here I think is a good investment in our county. And I believe that, like I said, if we do one, and then we can also do the same prints and stuff if we want to do more later. But I do believe, and I'm chasing this funding, I just want to say that if I and some other people help me, come in here and say we got the grant, I want to know if you guys are going to give me the match money, because you know what I'm saying? I have to have cooperation with you all. We all do anyway, but to say that you guys would bring up the match money to make that happen. And I don't know what percentage that is. It might be 50, it might be 25, I don't know yet.
Do you know what time of year they award those?
Award?
Mm-hmm.
I talked to Greg Good in Annapolis the other day, and I asked him, I said, if I have a day of trying to put this together, get with you. And he said around the 1st of July, I need to get with him and begin to plan this.
That's the application part?
Yeah. I'm not sure about application. He advised me I need to get with him in the early part of July to begin to talk about this. So it's all based on funding. It's all based on grant work. And if the grant don't come through, it ain't gonna happen.
Don't you have to figure out how you're gonna spend that ARP money by next year or something?
It's not ARP money anymore, right? It's just.
It's still ARP money, but.
I thought you had
You
to
still have to have a plan and stuff.
plan how you're gonna spend it, and then 26
Well,
got
I
it
mean,
spent, right?
Yeah,
And
was it-
26 you
Yeah,
gotta
we did
spend it.
plan,
it was 3.2, 3.3, right?
3.1.
And we spent 690, I think. So far, that's been allotted out for internet
Yeah.
stuff in the north end of the county. But like I said, when that really happens and people start getting that fund, it'll disappear and you won't have nothing to show for it. I mean, you will, but I mean, why don't we at least out of this process have something that's going to last us 50 or 75 years instead of something that just disappears? And I know the cost. I mean, I know that Kelly is very familiar with construction, and I know that it's. No, I know, but I mean, it's a lot of money.
I'm shocked on these numbers.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
if 2-car garage with little living quarters on the side of it, and you
Yeah.
want $1 million, I mean,
Yeah. But it's just a totally different animal when you go to commercial.
it must, well, no, not just commercial, maybe government commercial.
Yeah, there's so much stuff that you have to go through and different things.
That's the
But
reason to get these drawings done and get the engineering information done,
Yeah.
that way we can find out. We're just going by numbers people are giving us, we don't have anything hard and fast yet.
But
I understand all, yeah.
You know.
the main thing, what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to let you know what's going on so you know ahead of time.
I'm on
And,
board.
And if this stuff is set up right, and anytime say if you're paying $250,000 on a $1 million investment, you've tripled your money. I mean, you can't, but like I said, it's all about the grant money. And that's a very important thing, because people in the local community, these people on the ambulance board have put their time in it, and they've made good decisions. And I think this thing could be a very good big asset to our county. We already got the property secured. I'm ready to sign the paper on that property. I mean, they're ready to sign for it for a 100-year lease for $1. It's right on 63. And I talked to John Spur about it, and he says it's perfectly legal to build a building on leased property. That's a big thing, because I think any other site we might get, maybe in Central we won't have to.
Paying cash.
Huh?
As long as you're
We can pay cash for
as long
that.
as you're paying cash.
I'll donate the dollar.
Bank
But-
wouldn't like it.
But what we're here tonight is to get $20,000 appropriated
Well,
so we can develop plans. That's all we're asking right now. To have a possibility to make a big investment later.
And as Tim said and Mark shared, the plans are so-called universal for all 3 sites. So you just kind of take that 20,000, divide it by 3, so you're not.
that's true.
Yeah.
Right,
And-
reuse them.
Yeah,
and
we're
if-
reusing the plans, we're
Right.
going to
Right.
design it so that it can be used at all 3 sites. There's no reason to change the design.
Right.
If you got adequate land.
Once, say the grant comes through, we build this, is that a significant savings for us on the ambulance side, or, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Is there a big savings once we get these built? Say we got 1 built, 2 built,
We don't have that locked down yet,
I know,
okay?
but in your mind, is there?
Oh, I think so. One of the things, the big plan here, or the big thing, would be, let's say we completely change vendors in 2024. Got a whole new ambulance company comes in. The last ambulance company, when they came in, had to scrounge around to try and find a building. They were having problems, okay? So they ended up buying a house and then modifying that house. And I don't know what the numbers are, but I know that they bought the house for somewhere between 80 and 100,000. Because I had a friend looked at the same house. But we're paying for that. We've been paying for, I think, 6 years now with this company. But there's no end to that. We're paying for that house, because you got to put a new roof on once in a while, a new furnace in once in a while. He's leasing a facility down in the south end of the county. In the long run, if you look at the big picture here, is the county saving any money by owning these properties? No. Because we've taken a little bit of property off the taxes. We've spent $1 million or $800,000 or $20,000 to build a building. But what we're doing is we're making sure that for now on, the ambulance company who's in this county, or the county-owned ambulance company, if that's where we go, is in this building, and this building, and this building. There's no differences. Another thing we're looking at, which is a completely different project, and I don't want to muddy the waters here, okay, is buying all the equipment. We own the ambulances. We own the heart monitors. We own the stuff. We just don't own people and drugs. And that way, when you contract somebody to come in, that's all you're paying for, is manpower and the consumable things that they use. That would get us from, I don't even know where we are. You guys redid the budget. I think we're somewhere around $500,000-$600,000 this year. But hopefully that gets us down to $300,000. By doing these things. It's just to try to get a handle on this mess that we've kind of got going on.
Neil, you got anything to say? You was on the committee.
Mark said it very well, so I don't have anything to add to that.
Are there any other questions?
Other than, the only thing I would add was that on the cost of the buildings was, the commercial buildings may have to, I would assume that there's a lot more codes, when you're involving public structures with public access. Do you have to meet a lot of additional codes like ADA requirements or safety requirements or fire protection
Oh, yeah,
requirements?
you got this stuff.
That's
Yeah,
correct, we
so-
have to take it through state plan review. and
Yeah, absolutely,
Department of
with the
Homeland
fire
Security
marshal's office and-
also your local plan review.
Yeah,
and,
but hopefully-
Fire department has to review it, we have to bring utilities on the site into the building, all of that adds up. And that's part.
Yeah, and I think we kind of figured the high number was for total build keys in hand, ready to use. It accounted for everything, the generators and, not just the structure itself, but all costs involved. And they're long-term. It's a 100-year, possibly a 100-year investment. Of course, in 100 years, we might be getting transported to the hospital with some kind of a space capsule or something. I don't know. And so, but the buildings could possibly last that long. So, steel framing, they would need to be, in the event of a weather disaster like a tornado, they still need to be there, hopefully. They would survive that type of incident and not be wiped out with everything else, because they'll be needed after that point. So I think the strength of the buildings was a cost factor as well.
So the question we have today is, will you appropriate $20,000 to us develop the plans to make one of these ambulance garages at the level that we can go and get grant funding for? That's the question. The next time, maybe next week, next meeting, we can come to you and say that we'd like to see, maybe can you set aside or make a commitment on, once we come up with some type of cost that you could do it, because as far as set aside money until we find out if we get the grant. When we don't get the grant, forget it. But when we make a commitment to a grant, you always got to make sure, as we do with the community crossing grant, we want $333,000 every year to get for $1.33 million, and you guys all do that each time. So what I'm saying is, the integral part of that grant is when you're going for that grant, you got to make sure you got that 25% or 30% set aside and reserved to proceed with the grant. Because to get the grant, you ain't got the match money, then the grant ain't going to happen.
Is there a set amount that we can get? What's the highest amount we can get?
We don't know.
You don't know?
No. I think it depends. I'm going to say it'd probably be between 25 to 40% match. I don't know yet. I can get back with you on that when I get closer to it. But it's got a good return on it. And mainly what we want to do is, as I said before, the problem with most of the projects we have in the county, when we find out about grant money, then we go try to find a project. And a lot of times we can't, this is too quick. This way here we got something set and ready to be, maybe get grant funding. So that's where we're at.
Does the money for this, to get the design, you have to have that in hand to get the grant?
No.
So if you don't get the grant, it'll be...
With $20,000 to do the engineering and the design of the building.
If you don't get the grant, this is not even necessary.
But you need this in order to complete the application process.
We got to have a drawing of a building all done before we can apply for the grant to get the building, and that's what that's going to do.
And if we have this information, the chances of this being successful as far as going to go out for the grant is going to be higher than if we just have a paper drawing.
But you always have that design anyway for future. If you want to do
Right.
something else, you're getting a design.
I mean, this year it may not be approved, but next year, if there's something available out there, then we have a likelihood of getting that next year instead of this year.
Yeah.
So I don't think it'll be ever not useful. I think
You're going to have a
it'll
set
be-
of prints in your hand for $20,000, or just not. It won't be the finish to the level. So that's where we're at.
Sullivan, I think the town, but also the county, were very, very successful in
Yes.
several projects, and that's because they were
It was ready.
planned, sitting on the shelf, ready to
Yep.
go. And that's basically what we're attempting to do.
Any other questions? Okay.
So I'll make a motion that we appropriate for professional services, $20,000 as requested.
Second.
I have a motion for Mr. Weir, a second for Mr. Somerville, to approve the $20,000 for professional services. All those in favor, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, state no. All right, appropriations approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
additional appropriation this evening is from Economic Development. It is for $5,296. There's $1,000 each from a wage increase. It was not advertised in our original budget. Just for their yearly raise of $1,000, we inadvertently left it off the budget, and so we need to place that in there. And then the rest of it is the Social Security, Medicare, perf. And then there's also $2,071 included in that cost when Lynn Brewer retired for her vacation and retro, and then when Annie was there for a couple days to do training. So we have to add that to their budget. And Doug and Annie are here if you have questions.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion for Mr. Brown, or Mr. Weir, a second for Mr. Brown, to approve the $5,296 to Economic Development. All those in favor, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed state no. Okay, appropriations approved.
Ashley, will that be retro then?
Yes. That was, yes, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, it will be retro. That was our mistake for not getting it in there at the end of the year. I know, there's always one.
It's always me, that's fine.
Our next additional appropriation is for $5,172 for the auditor. Brenda, do you want to explain that one?
Leanne Smith, payroll. Sorry about the voice. This is in reference, we had a person retire in the auditor's office. So the additional was paid out vacation time. And also because they were hired in the first, anyone that was hired in the first 10 weeks of 2013, their pay is 2 weeks behind, so she had to be paid out for the 2 weeks as well.
Okay.
So that is what that is concerning.
Okay. So another retirement. Does anyone have any other questions regarding that one? Okay.
Make a motion that we approve this appropriation, the amount of $5,172.
I'll second.
Alright. I have a motion from Mr. Weir and a second from Ms. Brown for $5,172 for the auditor's budget and the third deputy and the Social Security, Medicare, and perf. All those in favor, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed state no. Okay, appropriations approved. Our next additional appropriation this evening is for $45,400 for an EOC. Mr. O'Hare received a grant for $20,000 for a new truck. He has found one in Fort Wayne for the total of $45,400. He's here to explain.
You're doing a great job. I got the during budget hearings last year, I came to you with this, and I said I thought it'd be a $45,000 project. I applied for the maximum I could get was $20,000 last year, which is this year's grant. Guy got it, I got it approved, so you had taken that truck out of the budget, and I'm here to get it put back in. This is the total cost of the truck, so once we buy the truck and show that we've paid for it, then the state pays us the $20,000, and it just goes back in the general fund, or wherever they took it from.
45's total then.
Yeah, 45, 4, whatever. That's the truck. Now, it costs me between probably $7,000 and $10,000 to do lights, sirens, and signage on it. There is a state Homeland Security grant coming out this year that I'm going to apply for that money. I will find some way to pay for it. or at least part of it.
What's that trailer you pull?
I've got a hazmat trailer that's full of floor dry fencing, all that kind of stuff. I've got 2 emergency shelter trailers that have tents in them, but the hazmat trailer is the one that it's hard for me to slow down. So when I applied for this grant, I applied for what's called a prime mover. It's a 3/4 ton truck that's made to haul and stop a trailer that size. So last time I actually moved that trailer out onto 63 when there was a semi-wreck. It took me, I'm just wagging this, maybe 300 yards to stop.
No brakes on the trailer.
Well, there's not brakes on the truck. You know, there's not a trailer braking system on a 1,500, a half-ton truck. So this truck will have that. It's all part of it. I've got all the specifications for the truck.
You need that.
Yeah.
Well, is the old truck gonna be traded in, or you?
No, the old truck will go to the commissioners and they'll decide what to do with it. My last vehicle I traded in back in 2014 was an Impala. It went to the assessor, who I think just last year, she drove it until then. This truck right now is rated about 190,000 miles on it. By the time it's all done and I'm ready to give it off, it'll probably be 195. 'Cause I got to run back and forth to Fort Wayne too with it. But
2-wheel drive?
No, it's 4-wheel drive. Yeah, I just guessing it's probably going to go to county highway. Somebody like that. I don't know. Somebody else in the county will be driving it for a few years who doesn't drive as much as I do. So.
It's in pretty nice shape overall, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it might be worth trading in. I mean, retail prices on trucks or auction.
Yeah, on the government, I don't think they really allow for trade-ins. So, I mean, if they wanted to sell it outright, they could sell it. But we're buying this $45,400 price tag is the government price for a truck. I looked at a similar truck at Pilson's, $81,000.
Yeah.
I also found some for like $60,000. The $81,000 doesn't have everything this truck has because the government, it's got to have a bigger alternator to do the lights and sirens and all that kind of stuff and radios. There's things that they add to it as just part of the government contract. It's similar to the law enforcement ones they buy, but theirs are made to go fast.
The truck value could be determined on like Gov Deals, which RJ sells a lot of stuff. So, and I'm pretty familiar with it. I've recommended we use that at work, and I got stuck with the functioning of that process, so I got pretty used to it. But it's something like that could easily get over $10,000 or close, maybe 10 to 20 in that range, something like that, which could be applied to offset costs versus giving it to the highway department or something as a spare vehicle or something. It may be of more value to have that to apply toward this project having it parked somewhere. I don't know.
I just talked to one of the commissioners a couple nights ago, and he had said that one of the garages is down a truck right now, so that would just allow them to limp through for a year or two. And I'm sure this is a truck that they would just trash,
But if they're down a truck, I mean, I would assume their budget would have some provision to buy
all of
trucks.
those things got cut, didn't they?
Possible.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But that's between you guys and the commissioners.
Right. You don't
once,
care.
Once I get keys for a new truck, I don't care what
Right.
anyone does.
We weren't buying too many trucks this year.
Is there a possibility of having buy a prime mover specific vehicle, if you bought a regular cab, long bed, stripped down 4-wheel drive, 3/4 ton that would just stay with the trailer, or
I would think that would be a complete waste of a vehicle. The trailer's used maybe 4 or 5 times a year, and if it's kept with that trailer, what happens when I need to use the trailer up in Cayuga or when I use the trailer that's at the city hall?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. I don't know where all the trailers are at or who can pull them. I'm just
And the truck I'm looking at is a crew cab because I use the back seat as an office. It's full of equipment, response equipment, all that kind of stuff.
What if you had to pull what if all 3 trailers are needed? Who would pull? I mean, you have to keep going and getting them?
We'll daisy chain them all together. No, that would be the case. The only thing I would think we would need more than one of would be maybe one of the shelter trailers and that decon trailer, because the decon trailer's got a lot of fencing and stuff like that for if you needed to. When I didn't get the decon trailer as a hazmat grant, I got that on a law enforcement grant. And so I had to add in fencing, barriers, all that stuff. I don't think you ever mess with it, but there's 50 cones in there. There's rails that go on the cones. There's all kinds of other equipment in there. that can be used to like close off a parking lot. So if we were doing something and something big happened at a school or something, we could stop people from being able to get in there. So if something happened big enough that we needed to close a parking lot and set up a tent, then maybe 2 trailers, you know, and that would just be a matter of running to get the other trailer then. That's why we keep one trailer with tents on the south end and one trailer with tents on the back
I didn't know if there's any, I'm not familiar with all of them. I didn't know if there were agreements with other, like, fire departments like Perrysville or Clinton or something to have the CSEP trucks that could pull. Were they required to pull trailers, or is that a totally separate?
If you remember years ago when you were the chief in Fairview, we had a lot of discussions about that hazmat trailer when we were trying to set it up. And it was going to be kept at the jail, which is the middle of the county, so that anybody, if they called out and said there was a big spill or there was something in that trailer that was needed, now you have a CAD, whatever, generated that there's an event, and then that way, if let's say it was a hazmat event and we'll just use Health Fire Department, then Health Fire Department could send one of their members up with one of their trucks, and they would just go into dispatch, get the keys for the trailer because we keep the tongue locked, and hook onto it, and Reese hitch and everything's right there, the ball is all with it. Hook onto it, take it to where it needs to be, bring it back, take the keys back inside. That way it's easy to get at all the time. Ever since we got the trailer, there's kind of been construction going on and different things, so that trailer's just been kept at the new firehouse in Clinton, sitting out in the parking lot. Same idea, anybody can go hook onto it and pull it out if they need to, but they'd have to get the keys for the lock, which the Clinton Fire Department has a copy of that key. All the trailers in the county are all key to like, so any fire department that has a key can get at them.
How many miles a week you put on the truck?
I don't know. I'm gonna guess somewhere around 200, 150, depending on what's going on. You know, with COVID, things slowed down at first. I wasn't going to meetings all over the state and trainings and stuff like that. But then about 3 months into it, it came down to going and getting PPE, the other side of Indianapolis constantly, things like that. So I've had that truck since 2000, actually the end of 2013, and it's got right around like 189, 100 and somewhere, it's right around 190,000 miles. So you divide that out, it's like 20-some thousand miles a year.
Is it a take-home vehicle, or it's just parked somewhere?
No,
when
it's
you need
parked
it?
in my driveway at night because I get called out in the middle of the
Oh, I
night.
see.
So I don't do any personal driving with it. I don't, you know, you might see it in the parking lot at Walmart or IGA. That's because I'm leaving work in Clinton and stopping on my way home. I don't take that truck out for joyrides or anything like that because I really just don't want to.
So what year was that, Mark?
It's a 2014.
2014.
Yeah.
I forgot to write that.
The new one's a 2023, and it's a crew cab 8-foot bed.
You won't be able to park that in any parking garage, so.
No, that's a big issue, but the truck I have, like when you go to the state building, I had trouble getting it in the garage there, but luckily most of the time the garage is full, so I can't get in anyway. You gotta park on the street somewhere.
So if you have to pull it, if there's an incident and you're required, I mean, you have to bring that trailer out there, that responsibility befalls you, is that correct?
Well, typically.
I mean, I'm just
yeah.
making sure I understand the procedure.
I usually get a phone call either from dispatch or from the fire department that's involved, and they'll say, hey, we need this. Now, I could just say, no, I'm not doing that. You know, I'm not gonna do my job tonight, you go find somebody else. But
well, I didn't know if
typically
that's
don't do
what if you said I can't, my truck cannot pull that trailer, I can't do it, then what happens, who does it?
They would probably be a fire truck that they would use.
Hopefully.
Right.
Or if you're on
Or they
vacation.
would go there and just unload whatever they needed into another truck and haul that, which would end up being a mess.
Or if you're on vacation, like if you go to Florida for 3 weeks, and then the truck's at your house, nobody gets that truck when you're not there, right? I mean,
They never have. I mean, if we needed to, that wouldn't be a problem though.
Any other questions?
Did somebody leave these?
It's gonna double the cost, operating cost, go from half to 3/4 ton, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
For
Neil
fuel
had
and-
said it was like 7-8 miles a gallon is what they're getting. I get about 20.
Yeah, it's gonna,
On what?
it's gonna cut it in half.
That truck?
Yeah.
I hate to say, that they're all, it depends what you're doing with it. I mean, they don't, that's why they don't have MPG estimates on those type of trucks, because you just never know.
I'm pretty easy driving a truck normally, just driving. Like when I got this truck, everybody thought I would get like 14, 16. And I'm typically 18 to 20, depending on what I'm pulling and where I'm driving, you know, stuff like that. I'm on county roads and the highway basically most of the time. It's not like I'm city driving a whole lot, so I usually get fairly good gas mileage. And again, I don't push it too hard.
Idle times what ruins gas mileage. Like my truck, for instance, is 2022. Supposed to, it'll get 21 or 23 miles a gallon on the highway going 60 miles an hour with a V8 engine. That's great. But I idle a lot for what I have to do, so 13's my average, you know, so it's not very good.
How many times you pulled the trailer in the past year?
Last year, the hazmat trailer was one time.
One time?
It went actually up to Newport, but they actually pulled that themselves. The tent trailer, I didn't get out at all last year.
Do you think it's really worth going to a 3/4 ton truck?
Well,
Just to run
the
around?
grant is for a 3/4 ton truck.
Oh.
Now, if we want to say, keep your grant money, stay, we don't care, then we can buy whatever we want, or I can just continue to drive the truck I got.
Well, we care about the grant money.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was
It's written for a truck large enough, a 3/4 ton truck. The justification I used was that when people use their personal trucks, we're putting it on their insurance, they get wrecked. The line I used was, we actually had nothing to do with the county. We were moving a large generator back when Henryville happened, so this is 10 years ago. And the guy who was moving that generator actually broke the axle on his truck, and it was his personal truck. And that's just not right that you have people do that, or the fire departments do that, you know. We're putting it on their equipment and their insurance instead of doing it ourselves. And I applied for the same grant in 2021, which would have been a 2022 grant, and didn't get it. So I was happy we got this grant. The cost of vehicles have just gotten outrageous. You know, I paid $23,000 for my truck when I bought it in 2013.
Yeah, that's a bargain price.
But like I said, I went around to different places to kind of justify the cost, and they're all way more. So closest I found was like 55.
I did some research myself with dealers in the local area, and some dealers will not order a government vehicle because in today's, I guess, vehicle market, it's not like it used to be. You can't just go order a new vehicle, whatever you want, and in 3 or 4 weeks it's delivered. It doesn't work that way now. So the dealers, like a Ford dealer, is this a Ford?
This is a Chevy.
Chevy, whatever. Okay, so the Ford dealer, you go to the Ford dealer and say, I want to order a new truck for the government, and they'll say, no thanks, because they're only allowed to order so many vehicles a year at this point, and that takes up a slot. They don't get any, there's no revenue in that, because the trucks are cheaper than dealer invoice, and Ford has to reimburse the dealer for some of that, and so they're only selling retail value trucks, in my opinion. That's what I'm seeing. So to have the truck available now is pretty rare. But if you order it, I do know that I've particularly waited up to over a year for a vehicle, which the grant expires, right?
The grant runs out in September.
Okay, yeah, so ordering one is probably out of the question. Finding one available is extremely rare.
This same dealer, I think, is the sheriff's ordered vehicles through, and I think they're getting Blazers for Tahoes, for a couple $1,000s less than this truck is, and this is a 3/4 ton truck. Those are Tahoes.
You ordered Tahoes?
Yeah. But you had to order yours, and they're expected to be built in April, I think.
April-ish.
What's the dealer's name?
Kelly.
Yeah, Kelly's it. Yeah, I'm
Fort
familiar. Yeah.
Okay. When I bought the truck I've got right now, I got things from them, and I got things from a dealer in Lake County that sells government vehicles. And then I went to, back then it was Mike's Motors, And I said, I want this truck, and I'm willing to give you $1,000 over this cost to go get it and bring it here so that you can put your name on it. And it took a little doing, and they actually then got into selling the GSA vehicles, the scheduled vehicles, but when they sold out to Jackson, that went away. And they haven't, every time I've even tried to talk to them about it, just kind of blow me off, so.
About government pricing?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's almost not, the concessions to Ford or Dodge are almost gone, or Chevrolet. They have no interest in building cheap vehicles for municipalities when they're only going to have so much computer chip capability to build vehicles. So less production, higher cost, retail. They're going to build the high-end trucks, not the U.S. mail-looking vehicles or highway department vehicles. It's just not where their money's at now. So that's the problem. It'll maybe come back to that, but.
And I did call in Friday, this dealer, and make sure that truck is still sitting on the lot, and he said it was.
Anything else? So the additional is for $45,400 with a reimbursement of $20,000 for a net cost to the county of $25,400 after the grant is issued.
So can we do that, but maybe make a recommendation that we attempt to sell it?
The
See
old
what-
one?
and see what-
I would. I mean,
And see if we can recover the other
because I mean,
part of the 20,000 that we're off.
190,000 mile truck. I mean, how much more is the highway department going to get out of it, or any other department? It's not. They're going to end up having to put a bunch of money into it to keep it on the road.
When we clean it up, it'll be a nice looking truck too.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not- I haven't
retail-wise,
trashed
it's-
anything in it.
Maybe 10 grand.
I mean, we could.
Yeah, trucks are high.
I mean, we can make that recommendation that
Yeah, that's
commissioners
up to
consider
them,
it.
but
Yeah, I
can
don't,
make a
I don't think that really has
recommendation.
something to do with me here
But
right now.
it's not.
That would be you and the commissioners having a
Right.
conversation, and I don't know that they'd be against that. Bringing in money is something I think they've got.
That'd offset the other 20 if they chose to do that.
Maybe by half,
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah, or a quarter.
So it would recycle that back into the person who had the truck for the use from that department. So well, we've got assets that need towed. There's no doubt. And those county assets, am I right?
Yes,
I mean,
and they were all bought with
and they're
grant
for a
money.
reason. So they all got bought somehow. I don't know. I mean, it's a very expensive truck, no doubt. It's not going to get very good gas mileage. So that's just the fact of the matter.
The truck's only gonna last a couple more years anyway,
Right.
and then you're gonna be with this same problems.
The outlook
Maybe
for
not
getting grants
20,000.
in the future on this, I have no idea. Do you?
I don't know. Like I said, I applied last year for it and didn't get it. And that was the year they were trying to buy EMA's vehicles. And there's a whole other story to that. I'm not going to get into it, but none of my grants were being looked at. None of the, most of the District 7 grants were not being looked at because of the person handling them. She's no longer our grant person.
Now, this is for a brand new vehicle, the grant. It's specific, brand new.
I don't know.
I didn't know if
I've
you'd
never
buy-
seen a grant for used equipment. It wasn't what I put in for, so we have
Yeah,
to
I
meet the letter
haven't
of the
either. I
grant.
just didn't know if there was. Typically, it would not be. There would not be grants for used equipment.
Is there a motion?
I think it's probably best opportunity we'll have, so I'll make a motion to allow it.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion because I don't see any other way around it at this point. You lose the grant. He's going to have a truck within the next year. And at that point, we'll be 100% on the hook. And the cost difference between the half-ton and the three-quarter ton will be minimal in this market. So,
All right, then I have a motion for Mr. Somerville, a second for Mr. Costello. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed state no. Appropriation approved. Thanks, Matt.
we have to do, so the recommend, or our request to the commissioners to try to redeem as much money as possible from the other vehicle that comes when? When do we do that? At their meeting? We have to have someone at their meeting?
You vote on it right now, have somebody tell them. So, I mean,
Their next meeting's tomorrow morning.
yeah, so, I mean, I think we could probably get the word to them tomorrow morning, look at the auditor.
And I think a lot of that stuff goes through RJ anyway.
It does.
They have to declare,
Surplus.
Surplus, yeah. And then he puts it on their website.
And they won't declare it surplus until he gets the new one.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's a lot of time, some amount of time to do that. It doesn't have to be in the morning, but I would say sooner rather than later on the issue, so that it doesn't, a lot of ideas start coming up on what to do with surplus equipment. And I'm not saying those ideas are bad. I mean, the truck has use and need, but I think in this situation, the best bet would be to try to recover its value for its intended purpose.
If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and
Yeah.
talk to RJ and stay in touch with Mark and
That'd be great.
see what
You
we
have
can
no
do.
intentions on having 2 trucks, right? I mean, you don't want this other one? Okay.
As soon as I get everything off of that truck and out of that truck and into the other truck and it's ready to go, that's good to go away. So, like I said, I just give them to the commissioners and whatever they do.
I understand,
that's
yeah.
up to them.
But hopefully they'll, keep that money in the circle that you use it in, is what I see, so, thanks.
All right. Our next additional appropriation this evening is from Soil and Water. They're asking for their Soil and Water tech for $1,000. The Social Security, Medicare, and PERF is also included for a total of $1,188.50. This is their grant, and they're receiving $1,000 from Park County to increase the tech position wages. So.
The others too, the Social Security and all of that. Yeah,
They pay for the tech
It's
in
100%.
Right, yes, everything in that grant covers that. It goes through our budget and then we pay it out.
And then they reimburse us.
And then the grant reimburses it.
Need a motion?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion for Mr. Brown, a second for Mr. Weir. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, state no. Appropriations approved. Yeah, and then we have the amended salary schedule that goes with it. I'll need a motion to approve the amended salary, and a second for that one as well.
We'll make a motion, I'll second it.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
All right. Keep
I'll
that
second
easy.
it.
All right. I have a motion for Mr. Brown, a second for Mr. Weir, to approve the amended salary ordinance for the Soil and Water Tech. All those in favor, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, state no.
Does that need everybody's signature?
I'm sorry.
Does that need everybody's signature?
It will, but I've got one out here.
Okay.
That's just yours.
That is the end of our additional appropriations. We have a few open items. The first is the E911 board. We allowed the commissioners to pick first because they have to pick by district. That leaves us 2 remaining applicants. You have their applications in your packet. We need to make one of those our appointment for our representative on the E911 board. What? Uh-huh. Yeah, they pulled it.
Thank you, sorry.
Okay. Sorry. there any recommendations for an appointment?
Looks like we got two very experienced individuals.
We do.
Yeah, I know, obviously, Mr. Spence is well known. His credentials are impeccable for this matter. And Mr. Stewart equally, I know him equally well. He's everything that this says, he's definitely a leader in that field too, so it's a very difficult decision here, I'm sure. I've known Joe for decades, at least 20 years, so he's always been passionate about this type of work, there's no doubt. But by the same token, I mean, Mr. Spence is clearly an experienced person with 911. It's in all its inner workings and decisions that need made for that board. He's obviously a good choice as well. So.
Yeah, what is it, heads and tails here?
Arm wrestle.
Flip the coin.
I don't either. Take Neil's recommendation, but from what's written here, seems to be very qualified for that.
Both have a very nice application.
Can we remove somebody else's choice?
Unfortunately, we only get one pick, so.
Just add another person to the board, maybe, just we'll add two.
Is there a requirement saying that we can add an additional?
Probably, I don't know. Actually, Rick, I assume they're statutorily set by some amount. I don't know if anybody knows the answer to that.
I can say I don't have a clue either.
It's a shame to turn down a highly qualified. Last year we had no one apply for our position. Now we have two very well qualified.
Are you looking that up?
Like he heard you.
Yeah. Frankie, are you looking that up?
Scott.
Or Scott? Yeah. Scott, you looking that up?
I'm sorry.
Are you looking that up?
No, I was not looking at it. I was looking up, you know what I'm doing.
Mr. Holtkamp, do you know whether?
I'll make the recommendation. I would recommend Mr. Spence. I'll have to talk to Joe. I'm sure I'll see him somewhere and explain my reasoning, but I think Mr. Spence has direct involvement in this county's 911 system and has worked with it. I think he'd be an excellent person. I also think Joe would, but if I have to choose, I'll choose Mr. Spence and then try to get Joe on there again next year. There's appointments for next year, am I right? Okay.
It's a one-year appointment.
Right, it's a one-year appointment, so that's, do I make a motion for that then?
Yes.
Okay, I would make a motion to put Mr. Robert Spence, former sheriff, on the 911 board.
No second.
So as a matter of discussion, Scott, you're not for sure, but do you happen to know, Mr. Holtkamp, how many members can be on the board?
I do not. I don't know.
Okay.
It's representation from each fire department, the EMA, law enforcement, and I think the commissioners and the council each have an appointee. There might be a couple other people. The small conference room in the jail used to be too small to put all the people in there.
Are they all full? Are they all full except for this one, or do they still have?
Yeah, the commissioners have 3 appointments, and they typically pick one from each district. And so that's why we let them take the applications first to make sure they filled the required ones.
Right.
Because there were a couple districts that only had one application, so they had to make sure they got certain ones first. All right, I have a motion from Mr. Costello, a second from Mr. Brown to appoint Mr. Robert Spence to the E911 board. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, state no. Motion is approved.
I suppose we could look into that and see if
Yeah,
there's
let's-
room for
let's
more
do that.
people. I don't know if you can make mid-year appointments or after the fact, but
Yeah, I don't even know, honestly,
I don't know who would create, like,
if this
who.
is some
May-
board that was created by the county.
yeah.
At which point we could, add somebody to it pretty easily, or if this is something that's statutorily
Mhm.
established.
And when you see qualified people, and you know,
I know,
last year
I
they
know.
didn't have any, and
Yeah, and like I
this
say,
year you
he's,
have two very good
he's
ones.
hard to turn
very,
them down.
Joe's extremely passionate about the industry and that type of thing, and knows his business. He's an instructor in that fire department world, and, but we'll see.
Thanks for talking to him. Okay. Our second item on open issues, Mr. Ackerman is here this evening for the amended salary.
While Bruce is getting up, I wanted to explain that there are two different amendments in there. Just based on some conversations I had with prosecutor's office about how to effectuate the changes they want to make. There were a couple of different alternatives for this. Now, you'll see that it lists the other compensations that are other positions that are paid out of those departments. But one has just one change, the other one has, there's an addition in both situations, both proposals to the deputy prosecutor part-time stop grant. There's an increase. In one alternative, though, there was suggestion that maybe you would find more palatable a decrease to another position of a couple thousand. So that's why there were these two alternatives prepared for this evening. So if we can do something different even than what you've done here. So, but this is how this kind of looked in the original ordinance, and I just thought it might be helpful to see where the changes or change what's being made. So it's very easy to get lost in the numbers.
Yes.
Yeah. So I can't fix all the numbers, but I can at least help with these.
Thank you. All right.
Finished?
I think it's your turn.
Okay. When I was here last month, I was here for an additional appropriation in the grant. And you approved that additional appropriation. And after we'd increased the grant amount, we also needed a different salary ordinance. And I was trying to explain at that time that, well, let me back up a minute. I assume that there is no objection to using the money in the grant that was appropriated to go in the salary ordinance under the stop grant for $50,500, because there would be no point in returning grant money, okay? Now, when we got to that point, I was trying to explain how the child support office was funded, because it's funded differently than any other fund that you have. And Rick finally says, why don't we put this off for a month? Which seemed like a very good idea, because it's a very complicated funding process. Now, what I attached to the grant request was a copy of how money comes back into the county in the child support budget. And I don't know if that makes any sense to you or not, but I was just trying to lay it out to show that just about every penny that you spend in child support is reimbursed to the county in some form or another, okay? And there are three ways in which it comes back into the county. And that's what is laid out in that attachment that I had for you. Now,
And those three are expense claims, monthly expense claims, indirect cost allocation, and incentive funds.
yes.
Those are the three.
You know, I mean, I don't suppose there would be anybody else in the courthouse except perhaps Brenda and me who would know that indirect costs for all kinds of things that are spent in the courthouse come back to the county. Last year it was $34,000. And that's in addition to the fact that the first $24,000 on those monthly expenses is paid in full. The remainder is paid at 66%. Then you get down to the incentive funds. Those monies come into the clerk's office, the child support office, the prosecutor's office. So I don't know of any other fund where where you get back this much money. So then Ashley had requested that I have Bruce come today. You had some questions. Did you have some questions from Bruce? Isn't that correct?
We had asked if he would submit like a final total for your salary. So like a final number of what you're wanting the salary to be, because we had the original request from the budget hearings, and then we adjusted it in October before the final budget was completed or approved. And then we're here again with the salary adjustments. So we had asked if he would come with a total amount for your salary between the three different funds added together.
Well, the three different funds added together would be, I mean, I can answer that. Melissa, would you like to answer that?
No, go ahead.
Under the STOP grant, it's $50,500. Under pretrial diversion, it's $5,500. And as the ordinance stands now, under child support, it's $31,500. You had increased that from $29,500 after we had come in and asked for an increase because we thought the grant money was going to be cut.
So 55.
Did I explain that? Did I explain that correctly, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, for those, I think some of you weren't on the council during the budget hearings. You should be thankful. There was a considerable amount of discussion at that point. I don't actually remember all the exact details, but there was an expectation that some of the funding might not be available as much as it had been in years past to fund this position that Dinah filled. So the prosecutor had wanted to increase her out someplace else. The county kind of said, well, no, what we'll do, we'll meet you halfway, or there was some money taken out of supplies or something, I think, and moved up to pay for Dinah. So that's where this idea is.
Yes, instead of the $29,500, which you originally approved, you moved some money out of, I believe it was stamps and maybe office supplies. So it was not an additional appropriation, you just transferred it out of a line item. You went from $29,500 to $31,500. Now, I think part of your concern is that's an increase for me from $75,000 last year. And my response to that is, of the people who perform this job, I'm paid less than anybody. Your public defender is paid $95,000 plus pension plus benefits. I don't get pensions. I have enough pensions. And I don't cost you anything in health insurance. And in fact, since I'm paid out of child support and paid out of a grant and paid out of pretrial, I don't cost you anything. So, may I answer? Yes, ma'am.
I'm new, of course, but are
Sure.
you full-time or part-time or?
That's hard to say. I come in here to the office 3 days a week. I work from home on Thursday and Friday. I usually work from home Saturday and Sunday too. I mean, if you want to know, do I put in 40 hours a week? The answer is no. I put in about 55 to 60. Now, you want to ask me why, and I can't answer that.
Your
You love us.
Well, my son says it's because I can't quit telling other people what to do, and that may very well be it. I'm a little bossy. Is that correct? You know, I was thinking I've worked in this county for 25 years as a public servant. Think about that. Every murder case that's been prosecuted in the last quarter of a century, I prosecuted it and I tried it. I've paid my dues, and to come in here and have to say to you, I really think you owe me $2,500 more is just demeaning. Especially when it doesn't cost you a thing out of county general. Nothing.
I think some of the confusion was also not necessarily based on like the amounts for you, but like I know on the investigator expenses, the grant was originally requesting to fund 25,000 of that, and it got taken down to the 16,500, and then maybe it's coincidence, but in October when we had originally cut some of the investigator expenses out of the general fund budget, we were asked to put that back in, and then after that we find out that the grant got shifted as well. So I guess, was the grant changed because we made that shift to the general fund with the investigator expenses?
I can't answer that. I really don't think so. I really don't think so.
It just has that appearance because we funded the investigator expenses more on the general side, and then it got taken out of the grant to fund the raises that were originally asked for, like during budget hearing.
Well,
actually, I don't know, can you all hear me from here? If you've ever dealt with a grant, I would say there's almost 100% chance that the answer is no. They are their own thing, okay? Now I can get Carrie down here who administers the grant, which, by the way, I think the grant, we heard about a grant that may cost the county to match 25 to 40%, and matches are common with grants. Our matches come from within our office. We apply salaries to that. So we're never coming to the council saying, we need $200,000 so that we can get this grant. Right? So to answer your question, I don't know, but I'm positive, given the timing of it, that
I mean, do you understand like our perception of it, where you asked for a raise, you didn't get it, we switched money around, and now you're taking the grant money for the raises? I mean, that's just what I think some of the
perception should not exist.
Okay.
I mean, unless you think I would do that.
I'm not saying you have done that, but when we look at the numbers of how they shifted, it happened in the same accounts.
I can get Carrie down here and find out about the grant, but I don't think the grant is ever going to know what you guys are doing or have done.
Well, we were during budget hearing, we had the numbers, and those were
They were reduced. I was told the grant was getting cut.
Okay, which actually the investigator had gone up from the prior year. Like 22 was 45,000 for your NINA and 20,000 for the investigator, and during our original budget request it was 50,000 instead of 45 and 25 instead of 20. So those that showed that it was possibly going up, and then it went up even more slightly from what those numbers were in September. I'm just saying the categories got shifted, and I guess who picks the categories that goes in for the grant?
What do you mean the categories got shifted?
The line items.
Yeah, your line items.
Yeah.
Like, so originally those were the costs, and then with this last grant change, there's less investigator expense and more part-time, which is Nina's position. So it got taken from one and put into the other one. So
Well, there's multiple grants.
For the STOP grant?
There's a STOP grant, there's a VOC.
And do those two grants combine to fund this budget?
No,
Okay.
no, they do not. They do not. What you're suggesting requires a level of subterfuge that just does not exist. You know, the money that you put back in for the investigator had to be put back in because of the statute, right?
Right.
And his amount of money that he'll receive during the course of the year really depends upon the amount of hours that he works. Isn't that correct?
He's on a salary now.
On both the grant and the other? Okay, all right.
But you see where the confusion has come around between the
Yes.
switching and the, I
Yes.
mean, it has been a lot of changes.
Actually, there haven't been a lot of changes. I mean, we submit a grant application, all right, and then there's a delay. We didn't know that I didn't know the grant was going to be cut, but I guess they're reducing these grants statewide. At least that was the answer that I got from Indianapolis. And then, I don't think we did anything, and we found out that the grant money was being increased. Okay, so to me, the subject, I mean, that you're bringing up, I'd be happy to bring Carrie down and answer all of those questions. Okay, but I think it's a little different question than what is Nina's position if we were doing a salary study? What is her peer? Okay, clearly her peer, the closest peer is going to be the public defender, all right? Who you would have to ask how many hours he works a week. You've heard how many Nina works for, what, $8,000 less money and no insurance. But to me, the important thing is what general fund hit occurs on this salary. To me, it's all about the general fund. Is it taxpayer money? Okay. And if you look at the 4D office, I think if you did the math completely, you're going to find out that the county recovers more money than it costs. Okay, we recover between $1.5 million and $1.6 million in child support every year, at least over the last 5 years, and we have one full-time person doing that, with Nina helping. Okay, so what I have tried to do is get the most help that I can get for the least amount of money to the general fund. And I think I've done that, all right? Our victim advocate is 100% paid by grant. Our investigator is partially paid by grant. Nina is paid by grant, and 4D, which is a reimbursed amount. So I don't know of another office in the county that recovers the amount that we recover on employees. There may be one, I don't know. We're talking what, 2,500 roughly? Yeah. So I mean, basically, it either goes in salary to Nina or it goes back into what, Scott, my stamps?
Well, I think there's two different issues. One is the $50,000 increase to deputy prosecutor PT stock grant, which they've already done the appropriation for, but you still need to vote to increase that to $8,500. So that's part of this. And then the question is, do you want to do that without any reduction elsewhere, or do you want to do it with that reduction? And if there is a reduction, then the idea would be to move that 2,500 that had been shifted before back down to supplies so it could be used elsewhere.
On the child support budget, you're saying?
It wasn't the 85 that they did, it was the 48. That's what happened.
They only approved 4,800 additional something?
Who did?
Last time.
That was the additional appropriation.
Right.
Because, okay, that's the actual amount of the increase.
Oh,
in
but some of the
grants.
money within that budget
Yes,
got,
it was already-
yes.
got it.
That's-
So there's,
so-
I got it, okay.
Okay, yes.
This is the actual amount of the increase in the grant. It just changed different accounts than what we had from the original budget hearing. So like different line items. So that's why you see 42 versus 50,500
Right.
on the actual compensation schedule.
Any changes to compensation have to be approved by
Right.
council. So, sometimes you do these things where you approve the appropriation in one meeting, but we didn't have the salary amendment yet. So this is somewhat the paperwork catching up with what you've already done. There is still, though, this issue of the 2,500, and that's your
And-
fault.
And the reason why I asked to kind of table it last week, because we had 3 brand-new members that weren't involved with this process, and I still not sure, after some discussion a little bit here and a little bit there, that they totally understand what all's going on.
And
I think
tonight
this
might-
helps.
Yeah, I know you guys have been here a while tonight, but maybe sometime it would be helpful for me to just come in and kind of break down pieces of my office and tell you how we get funding for it and how we get reimbursed for it. Because a lot of people don't even know that the collection of child support is something under the umbrella of the prosecutor's office.
That might be helpful. You probably have the most complicated office in the whole county.
It's I don't know. The more I sit here, it sounds like a lot of them are pretty complicated.
The highway, yeah, they got several funds, but.
Just don't ask me any truck questions.
Prime mover, right?
What's your favorite color? Oh.
Truck questions are the only thing I can answer, right?
Well, I have a 2007 Sierra with less than 200,000.
We'll sell it. We'll sell it for you.
Okay.
Well, her position had a recommendation from the salary study, correct?
It did.
And how close are we to that?
When we did the salary study, we moved everyone's salary to the mid-range. It gave a range of salaries to where if you were outside government or inside government, what other county or private business would pay for that position. We moved everybody at that time to the mid-range, like the 50% mark. So you could basically say 50% of people make less than you and 50% make more than you if you had that same exact job somewhere else. And so at that time, we had moved everybody to that point.
And that's the 80-some thousand mark?
Or
Or was it below
it
that?
would have
or
been whatever
Did we bump it up since then?
It would have been last year's budget number, which would have been.
75?
Is that what you?
Last year.
22 salary was, you said 75 total?
Yes.
And then we and now we're at 85?
87?
875, I believe. Jerry
Yeah,
does.
87.5.
And everybody else went up roughly $1,000 or 2,000?
It's
Or-
1,000.
Huh?
1,000.
That was $1,000 across the board, flat raise, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then I have an email from Carrie dated December the 19th to Leanne that basically says that the final grant approval numbers were higher than what we'd originally talked about. So she shares that in this email here. So
So that's
And
the.
that's dated when, Rick?
December the 19th, so we didn't know until then.
That would have been several months after the budget
Right.
hearing.
Right. At least a month and a half.
That's the additional appropriation for the
Right.
4,835.45.
Yeah, so that would have been that discussion.
But when we did the midpoint, we went to 75 and then we went up 10,000 from there.
No. No.
I'm asking. Right, when we did the salary study, we set it at 75.
Yes, I'm assuming that's what she said she made, but
And
We
then
would've
went
put it
up-
at the
I'm
midpoint.
just asking too.
We put everybody at the midpoint on that.
Yes, so that was, her midpoint was 75, and then she's went up 10 since then?
This would increase it.
Okay.
May I respond to Mr.
Yeah, sure.
That was for county employees that are paid out of county general.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't have set me at 75. Bruce would have done that because that's what was available through the grant, pretrial, and child support. I mean, I'm not set on a salary budget like like county employees are.
The way that I'm looking at this is, you're kind of Nina is more of a contractor, and this is the way I'm reading it, and I think this is the way it's working, but I might not quite be right. But you're compensated on basically your performance through the reimbursement process.
You know, yes, and whatever else we raised your grant money.
Right. So, I
and
mean-
it is more like a subcontractor.
Yeah.
And Bruce, if they come back next year, but you know, if they come back next year and the grant money is down to where it's only 45, then that's all that's gonna be available.
Right.
They're not gonna come to you and ask for money out of the county general to raise that amount.
And that's what you had said earlier, is you're paid basically by grants.
I'm paid by grants, pretrial, and child support.
And you're
None of which-
you're not paid out of general.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
no, never have been. And you wouldn't want to pay me out of general.
Right. And that's so-called thought that we got to get in our minds a little bit, is you're different than everybody else. Oh, we already knew that, but.
Well,
But yeah, but you're a contractor, the way I'm looking at
yes,
it.
yes. And I wouldn't contract for what you pay.
That's the reason why you don't get benefits.
Yeah.
You guys got questions for me? I think I understand it. And typically, a contractor pays for their own insurance.
Yeah, this is gonna come as a great shock to you, Mr. Weir, that I received Medicaid.
I'm of that age now, too.
Actually, was she included in the salary study?
That's what I was trying to find,
I
to see for
can't
sure.
imagine.
If it was, 'cause
I can't
it's been
imagine
a,
that, but if it was, because the person I'm thinking of is Greg Carter, who handles, city court, and I think I paid him like, $13,000 a year or something
Yeah,
silly.
$5,000.
I mean, so you're not,
that's what I was looking for. I don't have the spreadsheet I'd hoped I had, but,
there's no way you could take the level of her experience and put that into a peer study group, which is hopefully what salary studies are, and say, okay, here's where she is. So I would be surprised if she was in this, if the position was in the salary study.
And that's why I was asking.
Yeah.
I was asking if it was.
that's what I was trying to find.
I thought I seen something someplace, but I
And
can't
could
put
be,
my
I haven't
hands on
looked
it
at that
again.
in several years, but
I think I'm correct, that the only people in our office who are paid out of county general are our staff,
that's what you're saying.
would be our secretarial staff.
So far, I'm not finding it.
And by the way, the person that handles city court, I think, is paid 100% out of pretrial diversion, so that's not a hit on the general either.
Nobody except the girls, the staff.
I have the Victims Assistance Coordinator, 3 legal administrative assistants,
That's, I don't know.
The investigator and the paralegal. Those are the only ones I see on the salary study.
I didn't think she was in it. I don't know how you would put her in it, to be honest. And I don't mean just Nina, I mean
I don't think,
position.
yeah, I don't see Chris or Nina's position in there. It's been a while ago.
Yeah, that's
So, sorry, Marty. If she had been in there, yes, that would have been the midpoint. But I do not see her listed in the salary study. So.
So the 31.5, is that, Nina, is that the grant? Is that what you got for that grant, or was that 29.5?
31.5 is child support.
Mm-hmm. That's the one that we increased from the 29.
Wait, yeah, but what was the grant for?
The grant's for the 50,500 now.
Yeah, but what was child support? What did we bring in for child support?
When we thought the grant was being lowered, we were at 29.5 in child support. What we asked you to do was to move money from office supplies and stamps, move 2,500 from office supplies and stamps into the payment to me.
Right. But
Not to appropriate anymore, but just to transfer.
Right, to 31.5.
Yes, yes. That's why on one of those papers, it stays the same except for the 50,000, which is from the grant.
Right.
And on the other one, it reduces it back to 29.5.
Right, to what it was.
To what it was. And then, of course,
Right, gotcha.
And if I were still billing privately, I would have billed that amount by now.
So there needs to be a decision tonight made on the compensation schedule. We appropriated the extra funds that were received in from the grant, will be received in from the grant, but we need to make a determination on the compensation schedule, one way or the other.
Well, what I think is appropriate, just for discussion purposes, since it was originally 29.5, I'd see going back to what we originally had it at 29.5, and then seeing that stop grant was for 5,500, moving that what it was previously at to 5,500. So therefore, I guess we end up with a total compensation for you for 85.5.
Not only do I not know truck answers, I don't do math.
Okay.
Yes, but the grant at 50,500, that's just a given, because you don't want to give that money back.
Right.
Okay.
But it could be used for something else, though, right? Could be?
I don't know.
Okay.
The state has approved the line items that we've sent in.
Okay.
That's what's been approved by the state. So your real issue is in the child support budget. Okay.
I'm trying to make it so-called fair. I mean, the way I look at it, we can't compare you to anybody else in the courthouse because you're funded by
other entities.
Right, and that appears to be the agreement that we've used for years. And that's how you're compensated as a contractor.
But if you think it would be fairer to go back to the 29.5,
Right.
One point though, and this is just an aside and I won't take long, but I've noticed, and what's frustrating is, like when the guy comes in and says it's gonna be 20 grand to draw up the drawings for this building, they don't get put through this. Well, first, we're gonna compare your price to other prices, okay? And that would be called a bid, I guess, The people that work here are held to this standard, but if it's from outside, it's like, okay. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
the question boils down to this: do you pay her the $2,500, or do you put it back into stamps or whatever paper or whatever it is in child support? Either way, the general fund, which is the important fund here because that's taxpayer money,
I agree.
okay, doesn't get touched.
So
It
did you
doesn't
guys
take a
agree
hit.
on either one of these? Or is
What?
this just yours?
Well, now, wait,
No.
do you wanna?
I think what Bruce and I would want is.
Yeah,
the
I
one with one
understand that.
change,
I mean-
Is the one with one change, but in my discussions with them, we also, at least with Hyman, I did discuss the other one as a possibility to kind of reset that down, if that's what you chose to do. The idea was to give you, two options on how to do it, and it's $2,500 that
Right.
the difference. So, I mean, that was just,
And if you're asking me if I.
Yeah, it's
prefer
only
A
$2
or B,
grand.
I'm sure.
I know which one you prefer.
It's only
But-
two.
Oh, is it two?
Yes.
I can't, sorry.
That's not your.
It is
subject
two,
either.
yes, it is two. It's been a long evening. So, basically, you guys are agreeing over $2,000
Right.
for the last.
It's
45
$76 a pay.
I mean, I understand your difficulty is that you have 100 people who work here, and you
Right.
have to decide all their pay, and every time one of these comes up, it becomes this arm wrestling throw-down thing, because everybody's valuable, and everybody.
Everybody is
works hard.
valuable, and so are the
And you hear-
taxpayers of the county
Every
too. But I
department
know
has
it's
their
kind of
thing.
coming from the taxpayers' money. This is coming from the grant, but still it comes from the taxpayers.
With the intention, though, to pay such things, right? I mean, it's taxpayer money, the grant's taxpayer money, but it's intended to pay salaries
Yeah,
for
there's a
such
difference.
Right.
positions, I assume.
It's not county general. is
Right,
what I'm
right.
saying, yes. Yeah, everything.
So is there any recommendations?
Well, I'll make the recommendation that we still go with what I asked about, which would be
Okay.
85.5.
So you're recommending the compensation schedule that shows the deputy prosecutor part-time stop grant at $50,500, deputy prosecutor part-time, and the child support at $29,500.
Correct. And 5,500, where does that come from? I got it written
Which
down.
one?
It's not marked, it doesn't change.
Oh,
Okay, it
yeah,
don't
it-
change, yeah.
It's included in that pretrial.
Okay, all right.
It's, that one's split out different
Okay.
ways.
That's what I recommend.
All right, I have a motion for Mr. Weir. Is there a second?
And I probably owe you lunch for several weeks.
I'm just gonna spend it on his brother McDonald.
What is it?
Just so I'm clear, what
Hold on.
exactly what is your motion?
His,
I'm,
to approve this,
The one with two changes.
yes.
It would.
Which is the preferred?
No, I think the other one would be, what the prosecutor would want this one. No change, no reduction, just an increase. This one has a increase with a reduction at the same time, so it's less money.
Mhm.
2,000.
which one's being proposed?
This one.
Well,
There's two.
this one
Two
doesn't
changes.
tell.
For
Two
the
changes.
change. Increase and a decrease.
Okay,
More increase and decrease, but still.
but keeps things similar.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a second? Okay. With a lack of a second, that motion is now off the table.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to accept the other schedule with the $2,000, this $2,000 higher for the deputy prosecutor. What?
8,500 higher, with no reduction, just increase, no reduction. Right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I was just gonna read, yeah, it was a 31.5 for the,
The only change is from 42,000 to
To 50,
50,000.
right. I'd make a motion to accept that one, yes.
Okay, so the motion is to accept the compensation schedule showing the deputy prosecutor part-time stop grant at $50,500 and the deputy prosecutor part-time from child support at $31,500.
Which is untrue.
So that remains unchanged on the child support. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. I have a motion from Mr. Costello, a second from Mr. Weir, to approve the compensation schedule showing the deputy prosecutor part-time stop grant, $50,500 as the only change to the schedule. All those in favor, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed state no. Okay. No.
I don't know if you had a majority.
Alright. I'm gonna have to do a roll call vote. Mr. Costello.
Aye?
Mr. Somerville.
No.
Ms. Brown.
No.
Mr. Weir.
Yeah.
Mr. Bose.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Nay.
And we have a tie. Okay. That leaves it to me. I have much hesitation because of all the changes to the budget. We did put more money back into the general fund for other expenses, but I understand that Nina is in a particular situation with her grants. I will vote yes, but in the future, can we investigate whether or not that grant can cover other expenses that we're funding out of the general fund? Can that grant cover other expenses that we're currently paying like elsewhere? Like either supplies or staff, insurance costs, other people? I mean,
The staff is the match, so.
So
Yeah, I mean, I'll bring, I think it'd be great that I'll bring Carrie in and she can explain the timing because that bothers me, okay?
Yeah, we can't keep working like that. It's just too difficult.
No, I mean, it bothers me that somebody perceives it as you perceived it actually. So I'll bring Carrie in and she knows more about grants. She's forgotten more about grants than I know.
and I think that would help clear it up. We've had a lot of, I don't know if it was just timing or what it was, but with all the changes, clarification would probably be.
The hard thing here is, the easiest thing is to just not go for the grants and come in and get general fund money, you know? Because these grants are monsters to deal with inside my office, okay, not just in front of you guys. The easy thing would be to come in and say, okay, this is what I need.
Well, when we say part-time, you think somebody's working less than
29 hours.
Yeah, 29 hours or whatever. It's not a full-time equivalent person. But you are not really part-time, even though you say you're
It's
part-time.
not the nature of the beast.
No, it's not the nature of the beast. You have a job to do, and you're doing it based upon grant money. I mean, we can't compare you to any of the deputies in this courthouse or any of the office holders because, I mean,
No.
you might like to think that. I mean, I would like to think that, you know, you're somewhat equal to Bruce, but, you know.
He likes to think that.
Yeah. But I mean, it's good that we have your experience, is what I'm saying. But we can't pay for all your experience.
And that's why, I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand.
We do appreciate.
You're paying the public defender who has a lot less experience. And I love Mike Slagle.
Yeah, I know that too.
I mean, I support that completely. But the reality is, if you want to peer-to-peer her, I'd love for you to do that,
Well,
statewide.
Yeah, the tricky part will be if, in the future, it goes from 50,000 to 500, to a number less than that,
Then she
that's
won't
what
be
she's
here.
gonna get.
Yeah, that's the sad thing, we'll
Yeah,
lose her.
then we may lose her, but that's gonna be reality. More than likely, I don't know that, but, you know, but it's gonna be hard to, you know, to continue, I'll say that dollar amount without the grants.
Well, I thank you for your consideration.
Mhm. I'm ready for something.
We do appreciate all the grant work that you guys do in your office. That does help us out. So we want to make sure we do express that. We do appreciate you applying for them.
Really, he, 6 years ago, when he asked me to do this, he asked me to one day a week. You know?
Is that bait and switch?
In my experience, grant applications are the easy part. It's the management of the grant later is the hardest part.
Absolutely.
Well,
And
you
a lot
asked
of
me
times,
that.
getting the match is the hard part. I mean, you guys, it sounds to me, are gonna be asked to come up with what? $250,000 in a match? Where do you get that? You know, you can't get it from another grant. You're not gonna
Right.
get it from salaries. So, I mean, these grants they're a double-edged sword. They're a lot of work, number one, but without it, I wouldn't have her, the county wouldn't have her. So, you know, my goal is to make this cost for Maine County taxpayers the least amount that I can. And I think we've done that.
And I think that's what we're all trying to do.
And you know, one of the problems this past year was when COVID happened and they shut down so much, they changed the fiscal year on that grant, what, 3 different times?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, it used to run, you know, January to December, and they changed it, and then they ended up, ending up in September, I think. So, anyway, thank you again. Appreciate your
Thank you for your time. Alright, we have one item left on our agenda this evening. It's new business. We have the Sheriff's Commissary Fund report. Mr. Mike Camp's here.
I wasn't expecting to answer any questions.
It's usually laid out pretty well. There's not usually too much.
Could you come up and speak about it?
I just need, if you'll review the report and a motion to accept it. Motion and a second to accept it if you so desire.
Just want to make a motion?
Mm-hmm.
I make a motion.
All right. Motion. Is there a second?
No.
I have a motion from Mr. Brown and a second from Mr. Somerville to accept the Sheriff's Commissary Fund report. All those in favor, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed state no. It is approved. Oh, and look at that. As of the last word, my pen died. It's done too. All right. Is there any public comment this evening?
Before you adjourn,
Yes. Oh,
we discussed having.
we need to appoint someone to the Property Tax Abatement Committee.
I don't know, she just called the property tax abatement.
Sounded good? Anybody like to recommend anybody for the,
Oh,
huh?
the PTAC? You talking about the PTAC? Is that the
That's right.
acronym for it?
Let's call it something else. Our negotiation.
Thank you.
Negotiation committee.
That works.
Ashley, are you opposed to doing it, or you got too much going on?
I'm not opposed, I can do it. Does anyone else want to be on it with me?
I think Rick said
I'll
he.
be on it with you.
Okay.
Or you're
I think
on
you got a
board?
good plan tonight, Ashley, so.
So,
There's enough of you that you can have 2 people.
okay, that works. Do we need a motion then?
Nah,
Just,
Yeah.
we're willing to,
we have a consensus on this, right?
okay.
It's not a formal, I mean, it's not a real, it's a temporary.
I'm voting yes, so it's.
Yeah.
All right.
So how's the gym?
Yeah, I'm
going?
on board, whatever you guys come up with, so.
Getting there? I'm gonna say a lot of stuff's cleaned up and lights look like they're working.
Do we not get the
Bugaboos.
comp time reports anymore?
Quarterly.
Quarterly?
Mm-hmm. We'll have it next month.
Okay.
Any other public comment? All right.
Good to see the young man in the back here in the back.
Yeah, good to see you tonight. Thanks, Randy.
See
You
ya.
made more meetings this month than you did.
You hear that?
Last year.
No,
He
You don't
did.
get paid anymore, Randy.
Yeah, it might be
All right.
as well.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
I second.
All right,
I've made most of the motion today.
thank you.
Sorry about getting confused. What was it?